Aldrich Ames worked as an officer for the CIA in the United States. He joined it because he enjoyed the profession, which was also his father's and mother's line of work. He was faithful to America for years before abruptly experiencing significant life upheavals that led to his conversion to double espionage. The knowledge he provided to the Soviets cost American intelligence dearly. It is not surprising for a youngster to wish to be like his father. Aldrich Ames had aspirations of joining the CIA like his father. Aldrich, also known as Rick to his friends, was born in Wisconsin on May 26, 1941, and his father was a CIA agent. In addition, his early respect for his father, who was employed in Rangoon, the capital of Burma, inspired him to imagine the features of the CIA officer he would become in 1962 when he was 21 years old. For the benefit of governments or organizations, they gather and analyze sensitive information. They carry out covert operations, infiltration, and other forms of surveillance to obtain information about prospective threats or to their advantage. Because of the often secretive nature of their employment, it calls for extreme discretion and professionalism. They could work covertly or assume different identities. They need a high level of skill, training, and mental toughness for their work, which can be dangerous. Their practice frequently involves emotional deceit and manipulation. Like all individuals who join the CIA, Aldrich had to start from the complex of Farm, the place that welcomes new recruits to train them in everything relevant to intelligence work, and all kinds of operations that they will be expected to conduct. When he recounts the beginnings of his route within the American intelligence services, he adds that there on the farm, he was informed that he became in the interest of the elite of essential value to the United States of America. Additionally, they informed him that cheating, lying, and dishonesty were all permitted in such departments. Anything goes in order to preserve the best interests of the United States of America. Aldrich Ames has seen a meteoric rise through the ranks at Langley, the CIA's main headquarters, where he was an officer in charge of hiring operatives for intelligence work. He was then appointed outside of the United States, with his first position being in Turkey, where he served from 1969 to 1972. He married Nancy E. Jabarth, a CIA agent, during that time, and it turns out that the CIA values this man. One of Aldrich Ames' achievements in Ankara was his ability to enlist a female student who was close to Deniz Gezmiş, who was hung in the year 72 and was one of the most famous figures on Turkey's far left. Aldrich Ames was able to get the members' names of the Marxist-Leninist group Revolutionary Front for the Liberation of the People through that female student. Aldrich Ames was given the mission to hunt down and reveal Soviet intelligence personnel while he was in Turkey, and his penetration into the ranks of the extremist leftists enabled him to achieve important results. But his superiors in the central administration, when they evaluated what he had done in Ankara, classified his work in the category of acceptable. This evaluation limited the enthusiasm that Ames was showing in performing the tasks assigned to him, and, during that period, he considered quitting his job. He went back to the central administration in 1972 and he was assigned to the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe Service of the Intelligence Operations Department Central. The main responsibility of his new role was to look after several KGB operatives, either directly or indirectly. Among them was Alexander Odorovnik, a foreign service agent for the Soviet Union who had been hired in Colombia's capital city of Bogotá. After being stopped by the KGB in Moscow in the summer of 1977, this spy ingested a poison capsule to end his life. Diplomat Arkady Shevchenko, who served as second in command of the Soviet Union's mission to the United Nations and left Moscow in 1978 to seek asylum in Washington, was one of the Soviet spies who were lured and recruited. Ames was thought to have done a fantastic job with his efforts. As he benefited from a new job promotion, he was transferred to the CIA office in New York. The CIA has a policy of moving people from one location to another. Therefore, Aldrich Ames was sent to Mexico, where he spent the years 1981 to 1983. After his return from Mexico he was appointed head of the counterespionage service in the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe Department because he is a specialist in the fight against Soviet espionage. Between 1986 and 1989, he worked for the American Central Intelligence Agency in Rome, the capital of Italy. He was getting promotions, and his superiors liked him. At the end of 1989, he returned from a year in Rome and took over as the chief of the Counterintelligence Department's Czechoslovak service. After that, he was chosen to be a member of the Counterintelligence Center Group, which was entrusted with analyzing data on the Soviet Union. At the end of the year 91, he was appointed chairman of the KGB Working Committee. This spy completed his 31st year in the CIA in the year 91, and throughout that time, he's shown undisguised cleverness and ability. However, it appears that his superiors disregarded significant events that occurred to Officer Aldrich Ames while he was operating in Mexico between 1981 and 1983. Ames divorced Nancy Sega Barth during that time, and shortly after, he met Rosario Casas, a Colombian lady who worked as a paid informant for the CIA. He started gambling and drinking heavily during this time. Debts piled up on him and became a burden on him as a result of the changes that took place in his life, and he started looking for a means to be able to be free of their obligations. Being one of the most effective American intelligence officers, it is quite remarkable that no study was done into the changes this man's life experienced. Using illicit methods to obtain money frequently results in betrayal. Aldrich Ames wanted to make touch with the KGB men he had been tasked with combating in Washington, D.C., in 1985. They were sheltering behind Soviet embassy personnel or Moscow's delegates to foreign organizations. The Soviets cared that they would have a significant and trustworthy source of information, while Ames cared that he would receive enough money to get through his crippling problem. The KGB experts determined they were dealing with a man they could take as their man within the CIA after studying the information he initially gave them, which was information that was not in his estimate of importance. His interactions with the KGB then reached a new level when he gave it the names of 3 KGB agents acquired by the CIA and used them as his men in the KGB castle's hallways. Aldrich Ames, who has been a double agent from the year 1985, received $50,000 from the Soviets in exchange for these identities. First, the Soviets were persuaded by the 3-name agreement that their new guy could give them a wealth of information regarding CIA plans and operations. They generously compensated him, and he received $1.88 million in cash, in addition to precious gifts. Because of the amount and variety of what the American spy was providing, the KGB was compelled to assign him the role of Sergei, a special contact person whose job it was to deliver what he was receiving from Ames to Moscow using a variety of channels. What he received were suitcases full of important documents, files, and floppy disks. Even after being transferred out of Washington, the double agent continued to provide the Soviets with all the information that was of interest to them. The fact that Aldrich Ames's debt load began to decrease and the American intelligence agency was unable to notice it raises numerous questions, as does the fact that she was unaware that her agent had switched to being a double agent, something she would learn about years later. The intelligence he gave the Soviets was priceless. It harmed the spy networks that the United States of America had woven into the Soviet Union and certain Eastern European nations. Ames disclosed to the Soviets a number of CIA operations targeting the Soviet Union, 2 of which were technical in nature, and the other targeted 25 people. Long is the list of losses that resulted from that information. Many are Soviet agents who were working for the CIA, and a number of them were discovered and executed, while others chose the path of defection and hiding in the West. The head of the KGB office in Athens, the capital of Greece, is an instance of this. Colonel Sergei Ivanovich Buchan received the order to return to Moscow in the final month of the year 85. He viewed the situation suspiciously and chose to remain hidden. During this time, in the spring of 1985, an eavesdropping station put up by the Americans in the Moscow suburbs to spy on the telephone lines of a facility specializing in laser beams was suddenly deaf. Slowness hampered the CIA's inquiry of the significant loss of their spies inside the KGB. There were rumors that there had been significant leaks. Aldrich Ames is subjected to a lie detector test twice during the course of these inquiries without his adultery being revealed, despite the fact that various clues from his day-to-day activities raise questions about the sincerity of his objectives. His annual salary was $60,000, but his spending and possessions greatly outstrip what his income can support. Due to the extensive phone contacts his wife, Rosario Casas, made with her family in Bogotá, he was paying a high annual phone bill of $6,000. He also has a $540,000 home in Arlington, Virginia. It was mentioned that he paid cash for this house. He also has a Jaguar worth $60,000. Aldrich Ames used to tell that all he possessed came from fortune his wife had inherited in Colombia in response to questioning from people who were amazed by his wealth. After the fall of the Soviet Union in late 1991, it appears that Aldrich Ames began working for Russian intelligence, and it is likely that the CIA would not have learned of Ames' treachery if it weren't for information obtained in 1993 from a Russian Foreign Intelligence Service agent. Under the alias Avenger, this agent represented the CIA. Aldrich Ames, who was detained alongside his wife Rosario, was the target of the investigations after this evidence, which revealed the existence of a spy working for the Russians inside the CIA, caused them to be redirected. Ames and his wife were charged with spying for the Soviet Union and then Russia after being detained. Aldrich Ames ultimately admitted the charges against him, and it was said that this was done as part of a bargain with American authorities under which he was given a life sentence. His wife was solely investigated for tax evasion and spying conspiracy, and she received a prison term for those offenses. 5-year period.